Can you start by telling me a little bit about your background, where you grew up, and how you first got into running?
So my name is Prettyman. I grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah, in the Sugar House area. I started competing in sports when I was really little. I started playing soccer when I was 3, and from there it just kind of developed into all different types of sports. And when I was 8 or 9, my parents decided to sign me up for track because I was faster than most of the kids on the soccer field. And then I was coming home from school in second grade and telling my parents about how I was beating sixth graders at recess. And so my dad signed me up, and when I asked him what track was, he said all I had to do was run on a straight line, and I couldn't believe that all you had to do was run on a straight line. And from there, it just kind of blossomed. I went from there. I started running. I met a lot of really awesome people. I had an awesome coach, and then when I was 10, for the first time, I went to state, and from there, um, doors just opened up with different opportunities, and that was really how I got into the sport and why I decided to keep going in the sport.
When did you realize that running could be more than just a hobby or that you might have something special?
So as I mentioned before, in the last question, there was a moment where I went to state as a 10-year-old. It was the Hershey's State Track and Field program, and from there you could qualify to go to the national championship program, the national championship in Hershey, Pennsylvania. It was all sponsored by the Hershey Chocolate Company, and I kind of just went from there. And when I won that, I realized that I had a little bit more of an opportunity to maybe actually do something with this sport. And I went to the next year. I went to the Junior Olympics in North Carolina in Greensboro, and I got second there. And then I later went to the Hershey's National Championship and got second there as well. And everything from there, it became more of a reality. I remember, I remember in middle school, I had friends that would wear D1 bound hats, and I didn't know what D1 really even meant at that time. And when I found out, I realized that I might have been the only one that actually kind of was D1 bound, um, which was kind of a crazy realization to make. And then yeah, from there I went to high school and competed, and it was just every single meet, it felt like more doors open for me and more opportunities open for me as the records came and the wins came. It felt like every single time that I got a PR, it was more doors that were open. So it's hard to pinpoint one moment, but I'd say there were a lot of little moments that led me to, oh my gosh, this could go somewhere.
You were part of Cheetah's team growing up. What was that experience like for you, and how did it shape your early love for track?
Honestly, I think the biggest thing that I took away from being on the Cheetahs track team was friendship and community and family. Um, I think that it provided me a safe environment to grow my sport in and to be successful in my sport in an environment where I could thrive because I had people around me that supported me and cared about me, and I could mess up, I could fail, and it allowed me to be able to be successful because of how I was able to fail in that community. Um, I mean, I grew so much from that, and it's so cool to be able to give back now. I mean, I still have friends and people that I consider family that are still a part of that Cheetahs Track Club, and people that I haven't seen in years that if I did, I would be over the moon to see them and embrace them and give them a hug. And I really think that things like that really made the biggest impact on me. Was that, I mean, I could have ran track anywhere, but I chose to run it with Cheetahs Track Club, and I'm forever grateful I did because it gave me the sense of family and belonging, and yeah, it was an amazing opportunity and experience.
Looking back, what do you remember most about competing at nationals and the Junior Olympics? How did those experiences impact your confidence as an athlete?
The number one thing that comes to mind is when I was 11 at my first nationals race. Obviously, that's the first time. I mean, I was extremely young, and that was the first time that I'd ever experienced anything like that. I mean, I was running in front of 3, 4, 5,000 people, um, and I'll always remember I made it to. We had races all week. I'd have like one race to make it to finals. I have like I had prelims and then semifinals and finals and all these extra races, and so I've been racing a lot that week, and I made it to the finals in the 100, and I think I came into it like fifth or sixth, I think. And I remember getting down. I mean, I was just this tiny white boy with a bowl cut and a farmer's tan, wearing this tank top that barely fit me. And, you know, in the middle of North Carolina, I'd never been back east or anything. I flew out with my mom, and I remember when we were warming up and I got into my blocks to do a practice start, and I remember I went out like 50 or 60 meters, and I was walking back, and the official was like, "Come on, lane 6, you gotta hurry up." And I was like, oh my gosh, it's about to happen. Like, this is gonna dictate like the rest of my life. I remember thinking that. And of course it didn't really end up, I mean, it did and it didn't, because I had so much more opportunities, but I always remember being like, this is it. This is the moment that's gonna dictate my life forever. I remember I had, back home, there was a whole watch party of all my friends and my family, and I knew there were a lot of people watching, and I got in my blocks and I went to go, you know, they say on your marks, and you go back and you're sitting kind of in your blocks. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to throw up right onto the track right here, and they're going to have to stop the entire meet to clean up my puke because I was so nervous. But obviously I didn't really have time to, like throw up because we were on to the next. And that was a moment that is like always really, really stuck with me. I mean, there's lots of moments that stuck with me. I mean, traveling by myself to across country to compete was a huge moment in my life without my parents. When I was 11 or 12, to go compete was a huge moment in my life. And I just think that there's plenty of national moments that I could think of, but that's definitely the most, one of the biggest ones, I'd say.
As you got older, how did your career evolve in high school? What kinds of accomplishments or breakthroughs really shaped you during that time?
In high school, things started to change. I stopped doing nationals and much. Stopped doing the Junior Olympics and really focused on state and a meet called BYU meet, which was a really big meet. And we started to focus more on things like that. As a freshman, I'd come in pretty fast, and a lot of people, I was kind of already in the track world from my national stuff, and so a lot of people already kind of knew who I was, but I came in and I got 6th, I think, or 8th or something at state, and I ran really well for a 14-year-old, and that kind of prompted everything moving forward. And then my sophomore year, I won the 100, 200 and long jump, and I was 15 and I was beating 18-year-olds, and that was definitely the moment where I was like, okay, well now I gotta keep doing this now. And started to make a name for myself. I think it was my sophomore year where my first college reached out at an indoor meet. They couldn't legally talk to me, so they had to talk to my parents and my coaches and give them brochures and everything. But it was funny, I like knew the coach that was watching me, and I'd always catch him watching me, which was interesting. It was an interesting experience to be a 15-year-old in that. And then from there, my junior year, where I won the 100 and 200, and I got 2nd in the long jump to one of my best friends. That was kind of the race that changed everything moving forward. It was it was considered the fastest heat in Utah at the time, and 3 of us all broke our own state records. I broke the 5A state record, and I came in 3rd, which is kind of crazy. And from there, everything, I mean, I thought everything was already so heightened, and then everything from there. I mean, I remember 2 weeks later, that was at the BYU meet, and 2 weeks later at the state meet, I had coaches coming up to me, college coaches even, coming up and saying, this is exactly how you ran, this is what your stride length was, I've watched this video over and over again into this with all 3 of you, and here's everything that you guys did, and here's how you can change that, and here's how you can get faster. And it was people I'd never met before being like, oh my gosh, it's you're Will Prettyman, and it was a weird, it was weird. But everything from that point on just accelerated. Colleges started reaching out a lot more heavily. They had already been reaching out because that was my junior year, but from there it got really, really intense, and from there it was when I really made a name for myself, I think, especially in the state of Utah.
What did it feel like to achieve the kinds of milestones you did, and what moments stand out most from competing at that level?
It feels weird, especially now. A big part of me, like talking about all this, it doesn't really feel real. Even it doesn't feel like that was me. That I was able to do all those things that I did. Again, there's so many moments that I could choose from that really stuck out to me competing on that national level. I think one of the coolest things was that the camaraderie that I developed between me and my competitors because we had been racing. I mean, there were some kids that by the time I was a senior, I've been racing them since I was 11, and we were considered some of the top racers not only in Utah but even considered in the nation. And it was really cool to be able to have that camaraderie because we would go to these big meets and we'd always know each other, we'd always see each other, and there were a lot of kids that were slower than us that were very cocky, and it was always really funny because we never bragged to each other. We all knew each other's times. We all knew what we had done. We all knew how hard we had worked, and we all had this sense of respect for each other. And I think those were some of the coolest moments that I shared was standing with, some considered the top people in the state and um, making jokes before a race while everyone else was talking about their meets or talking about their times, and we were talking about relationships and homework and how school was going because we knew who we were lining up against, and it didn't really matter who else we were lining up against because we were lining up next to each other, and we already knew everything about each other. We had been following each other and looking up each other's times since the beginning of the season. So I think it was really those moments that were such a unique experience that I got from being at some of the top of my sport.
Records are still connected to your name today. What does it mean to you to know your legacy is still on the track?
I don't know. I don't know what it means to me. Um, it's really cool, and I think one of the coolest things about records is that they're meant to be broken, and one day all of my records will be broken, and I think it's really really cool that one day an 11 or 13 or 14-year-old will break my record, and they'll go to see who had that record before, and my name will be there. I think that that's a really cool and be like, oh, I broke Will Prettyman's record. I think it's an honor to me that I'm still have those records. I mean, it means I was doing something right too back in the day, but it's really cool to me that people are going to be able to look at that and be like, wow, like that was Will Prettyman however long ago, and wow, that was really fast for the time or whatever. And it's such an honor to me that I was there when my 5A state record was broken, and it was really cool that I was one of the first people that got to see him and be like, dude, you broke my record. It was a cool experience to kind of like pass that legacy on in a way. So I think it's really cool, and I think it'll be even cooler when my records do get broken.
How would you get yourself ready before a meet, physically and mentally? Did you have any routines, rituals, or habits you relied
Kind of from being in the sport for so long, I got so used to being like there were very specific things that I used to do, and I'd listen to certain songs to get my mind right, and almost to like tell my body that what I was about to do again, and I always used to get really nervous for races the night before, and I'd always just think like, well, you've done this before and you've been successful, so you just gotta go do that again. Like you've done this before, you do it every day at practice, and you do it every weekend. You can do this again. Getting your mind and your body right is so important, especially in track, because it's such a brutally honest sport. If you're having a bad day, your time will show it. If you're having a good day, your time will show it, and there's no really denying a time. There's football, you can miss a catch, or in soccer you can miss a shot, but then you can make the next four, or you can make the next four catches. But with track, you got one chance to run a time, and you could see if you were doing well or bad that day. And so it can be a really amazing sport. That feeling when you PR is something that I still strive for today. But the devastation when you're having a bad day or you lose a race can be really brutal. And it can really change your mindset about how you feel. And so getting your mindset right and recognizing that you're going to have different days, and You're gonna have bad days, you're gonna have good days, and going into meets, recognizing that and being aware that that is a thing and everyone struggles with that is always a huge thing too. And for me, like I kind of mentioned, music was so important. There was one song I would only listen to before I would run, and even to this day, I mean, I haven't ran in 5 or 6 years now. Well, 3, 4, I guess. But that listening to that song now will get my heart racing and my, it'll get me going. Still, and it was because every time I turn on music, I'd go warm up, and I always made sure that was the last song I listened to before I'd go out and race, and it would tell my body, okay, you're hearing this song, it means you're gonna go out and do this. And so even now I can, like, when I listen to the song, it like juices me up, I guess. So
Who were the coaches or mentors who had the biggest influence on you, and what lessons stuck with you?
probably the biggest influence on me was my coach that I've had since I was 11, Coach Tolbert. I'm now working with him as a coach, and he's still mentoring me now, as just in a different way. He's mentoring me how to be a good coach. The biggest thing that I always remember from him is, again, at that first nationals that we went to, it was the first time I'd ever been in a position like this, and I was really scared. And some of the kids I was racing were a year or two older than me. They had they had mustaches, and again, I was just this little skinny kid from Utah that no one really took seriously. And I remember we went over into a field kind of away from the track, and I was warming up. He was very smart. He knew that if I was warming up in the atmosphere, it would freak me out. So he took me away. I remember I was really nervous, and he just reminded me that really that no matter what happens, we all bleed the same. We all bleed the same, and I think that helped put into perspective to me that I think at that time with my I had anxiety. I was struggling with stuff like that, and I think in my mind it was like this race was make or break, and I couldn't see past this race. I didn't know what my life looked like after that race. Like, it was almost like a life or death situation, and I had no idea. I didn't even know, like, when we were flying home, I didn't care because I was so focused on this one race. I couldn't think past it, and I think him telling me that helped me realize that no matter what happens in this race, like, life moves on. And I think that was something that I carried with me for a really long time, and even now it's like, okay, there's one thing that happens in your day or one thing that happens in your life that might feel like a make or break, but it's not. Life carries on, and you move on, and you learn. I mean, luckily I did pretty well in that race, so I didn't have to worry too much about it. But it just taught me that to kind of go with the flow and take things as you go. And we at the end of the day, we all just bleed the same. So
now that you're coaching yourself, how does it feel to pass along your knowledge and experience to the next generation?
I was talking about chasing that feeling of PRing earlier and striving for that, and I think it's really cool that now I'm in a position where I'm helping people reach those goals. And I understand why Tolbert was coached for so long now, because it's so satisfying when you're working with a person or a student or an athlete that just is not feeling it, and it's really amazing when you're the thing that keeps them going, and it's to see them thrive. Like my athlete this last year, she was really struggling. She wanted to quit track, and I was like, just keep coming and make it fun. Don't stop worrying about your PRs, stop worrying about your personal bests, make it fun again. And in the moment, I didn't really think anything of it. I mean, that's pretty like a standard thing to tell an athlete, but I made an effort to make it fun and exciting for this person. And at the end of the season, she thanked me she ended up PRing herself, and it was really cool that I got to be such a huge part of that, and she let me know that I got to be a huge part of that, and that's something that I'm going to carry with me for a really, really long time, which is really cool. It's that same feeling, just like a prolonged feeling of, wow, like I changed that, like I didn't just PR, but I helped someone else PR, and that's almost cooler than just yourself getting a PR. So
running is as much mental as physical. How did you keep your focus and confidence during high pressure races?
I didn't. Is the best way. I didn't. I tended to hyper focus on meets and races, and like I kind of mentioned before, what I tried to focus on instead was you've done this before and you know you can do this again. And so going into meets, I tried not to be too locked in and anxious about it. I knew that if I was nervous, it meant I was going to run faster because I'd have a lot more adrenaline and nervousness behind that. So I always tried to lean into being nervous, but I never tried to go over new things at meets. I never tried to, oh, I should change this with my blocks, or oh, I should change this how I finish, or because I knew that if I put that much attention to detail into those smaller things, I would mess up. Because I'd be too focused on what I was doing. And so I tried to always go into it being like, I know how to do this. I can do this naturally at this point in my life. And so I was, honestly, I tried not to focus too much. I tried to be, I wanted to trust myself. And I got really good at trusting myself and being like, hey, you've done this. You've done everything leading up to this moment, and you can do this now. Trusting myself, trusting my body that it wouldn't let down on me, and trusting my mental that I wouldn't break either. And, there were a lot of meets where I was there 12, 13 hours between races, and that nervousness and anxiety and everything, it could be hard to manage, but I'm proud of myself for getting to a point where I could, and reminding myself that this is stuff that I had done by the time I was 17, 18, that's stuff that I've been doing for 10 years of my life. And I knew it, and knowing that and trusting yourself was such a huge part of my mental game. So
How did you deal with setbacks like injuries, tough losses, or moments of doubt?
Reminding myself that these are things that everyone goes through, that it's not unique to me. And in some ways it's really interesting because I was in such a different position in my sport. I was the top of my sport, but reminding myself that I wasn't the only one actually was the things that helped me the most. And I think the biggest thing was my support system as well. I had a great support system within my family and coaches and friends in high school, and then I moved on to college, and I moved away from my former coaches and my family, and I was able to develop a really amazing support system in the school that I went to, and I had really great friends that were also athletes competing at a very high level that knew what it was like to be beaten down and be frustrated and be hurt and be sick. And when you're at that level of sport, getting sick and missing even 2 or 3 days can just absolutely mess up your entire schedule, your stamina, everything. It can really mess up your training days. It can mess up everything. And so learning how to overcome things like that were super important. Learning that it was okay for my body to take a break. Even now, I feel like I need to be better about letting my body take a break and relying on those around me for support. But I really think that the best ways for anybody, and not just as an athlete, but just mentally, the most important thing is having a good support system that can help carry you through those moments of doubt and stress and fatigue and sickness and hurt.
Were there moments of joy or pride that made all the hard work worth it? Can you describe one in detail?
Probably watching my parents. Watching them, how they would react to everything, and my coaches. My coach never showed any emotion, whether that was good or bad, because he never wanted him to influence how I was feeling. It was when I won state my junior year and I broke the 5A state record that I finally saw him show emotion, and it was such a weird thing to me. And I remember him crying too, which was really weird to me because he was always so good at keeping his composure and not letting things get to him, whether they were good or bad, to make sure that he wasn't influencing me, which I appreciated now. And it's really fun to see that on the other side now, because he tells me, he's like, oh my gosh, that was awesome what that person just did, but you gotta stay calm. He's telling me all these things. Letting the athlete come to him and be excited for themselves instead of being excited because the coach is excited was huge. And my parents, I can't tell you how many videos my dad has of him screaming my name and shouting, and then the camera going off of me because he's so excited that I just finished a race and that I won. Luckily, there were a lot of other people filming because my dad wasn't very good at it. For me, I think one of the biggest things, I just remember one of the biggest joyous moments of my life in my career was when I did break the 5A state record, and the kid that won was named his name was Dallin, and we had been competing for a long time, and my goal was always to beat him, and I don't think I actually ever did beat him. He was in different divisions, so we each got a lot of our own state titles and stuff, but we were the main competitors in the 100, and he won that race, and I got third. The kid in second had been kind of known, but not really, and it was one of the coolest experiences of my life was sitting there and waiting for our times to pop up on the big screen, and when they did, Dallin turning to me and saying, I couldn't have done this without you pushing me and being on my heels all the time. And I said, well, me too, dude. I'm still trying to chase you down. And it was just such a cool, it's such a cool experience to get that. You don't get that in any other sport. Main competitors typically don't like each other, and there's a lot of trash talking in football and soccer and basketball, but it was so cool to share. Before we got to share that moment with anyone else, we got to share it with each other. And us both realizing that we'd broken the state record for ourselves was such a unique and different experience of our lives. And all three of us ran like the top 10 times ever seen in the state of Utah. So 3 of those times were all in that one day, which was really cool. It was a really unique situation, and it was just such a cool opportunity to share. Before we went back to our coaches and family and friends, we got to share that little like celebration between us, and really just that sense of respect and between the two of us was just a really cool, and that almost meant more to me than breaking the record, because it was just cool that I was able to influence him just as much as he had influenced me.
What do you think running taught you about yourself, both on and off the track?
Track taught me that I can be very emotional, in good and bad ways. I mean, as I was saying before, track can kind of tear you down. It can be really brutal. Crying when I got hurt, knowing that I'd probably just ended my season, was life altering. Especially in college when you were talking about full ride scholarships and plane rides and money and time and effort. It can really make or break you, but then also can just be so joyous when crying when you win too. There's a lot between the tears as well. It also taught me that I can stand up for myself. It taught me to stand up for myself when things, especially as I got older into college, to stand up for myself and to be true to who I am and to stand by my moral pillars, because if not, that can mean losing my scholarship or getting walked over or being treated unfairly. And as an athlete, I think a lot of people can speak to that as well, as standing up for what you believe in and standing up for yourself and your teammates is huge in the sport. And now learning how to deal with, like an example would be like a boss, being able to stand up to a boss and saying what's right and what's wrong, and having the self-confidence and the determination to say, hey, like, this isn't fair, this isn't the situation that I should be in. And whether that's them or someone else is pushing you onto that, it's taught me to stand up for myself. I'm still young and getting into my career, and learning how to stand up and be myself is, I think, an extremely important attribute that I am really proud of, and one that I think is important for everyone to have.
One last question. If you could tell your younger self one thing, what would it be?
Don't worry about it. Probably. I think, especially when I was really young, I think I took every meet so seriously and so adamantly, and I just sometimes wish that I had just, I mean, I had a lot of fun with what I did, but sometimes I wish I wasn't so nervous about everything. And like I was saying, sometimes these meets felt like, man, I don't even know what's happening after these meets. I didn't, it literally felt like nothing, my life would end after this meet. And teaching, I had to teach myself that, you know, life moves on. And so especially when I was really, really young, when I was like 10 or 11, being like, dude, you gotta relax. um, Enjoy it and enjoy your time and what you're doing, because obviously it won't last forever. And don't take it for granted. So.
Hey, thank you so much.